She's still texting you good morning. She still laughs at your jokes. She still says, "I love you," before she hangs up the phone. But 3 weeks ago, she started something you can't quite name. And by the time you realize what it is, she'll already be gone. If you're a woman watching this, you may already know what that something is, because you felt it yourself. That quiet, almost invisible shift, where part of you starts rehearsing a life without him. Not because you're cruel, not because you're manipulative, because something in you already knows, what your mind hasn't admitted yet. This is the pattern nobody talks about, and it doesn't make her toxic. It makes her human. Today we're going to examine the pre-breakup pattern, the sequence of small, silent shifts that happen inside a woman, weeks or even months, before the relationship ends. Not the dramatic exit, not the screaming fight, the quiet reconstruction, the one that's already happening while everything still looks fine. So let us begin. Phase 1. Reconnection with the forgotten self. It starts small. She picks up an old hobby she abandoned when the relationship began. She starts painting again. She rejoins that yoga class. She calls a friend she hasn't spoken to in months. Someone from before you, from before us. It looks like self-care. It feels like self-care. And honestly, part of it is, but part of it isn't. When a woman begins emotionally disengaging from a relationship, the first thing her nervous system does is start rebuilding the safety net she let go of when she chose you. She stopped relying on herself the way she used to. She stopped needing her own company the way she once did. And now, without even knowing it, she's going back. Think about what this means. She's not leaving you. Not yet. She's just remembering who she was before she became half of something. And that remembering is the first signal that the emotional center of gravity is shifting. If you're a woman watching this, and your chest just tightened, that recognition isn't random. You've probably done this. Reconnected with an old version of yourself without knowing why. Started caring about your appearance in ways that had nothing to do with him. Felt the quiet relief of making a decision without consulting anyone. This isn't betrayal. This is your nervous system protecting you from a future it already sensed wasn't safe. Phase 2. Seeking outside perspective. She starts talking about the relationship differently. Not with anger, not with ultimatums, but with questions. She asks her friends what they think. She brings up small frustrations she used to swallow. She shares things she never shared before. And she does it carefully, testing whether her reality matches theirs. This isn't gossip. This is something far more significant. When a woman starts seeking outside perspective on her relationship, she's doing something her brain does automatically. When the internal signals become too confusing to process alone, she's checking whether what she feels is real or distorted, whether she's overreacting or underreacting, whether the distance she feels is actually distance or just a phase. The research on this is clear. Dr. John Gottman found that contempt, the quiet sense that you're alone and caring about the relationship, is the #1 predictor of relationship dissolution. Not anger, not conflict, contempt. The feeling that you're the only one still trying. And when a woman starts talking to her friends about what's wrong, she's not building a case against you. She's trying to figure out if the case already exists. Phase 3. Identity reclamation. She starts making decisions you don't understand. Not big ones, small ones. She changes how she dresses. She rearranges something in the house without asking. She picks up a new interest. That has nothing to do with your shared life. She stops deferring. She stops asking permission for things she never needed permission for, but used to ask anyway. Because that's what you do when you're trying to protect the harmony of something you still care about. This phase is the most misunderstood, because from the outside, it looks like she's pulling away. From the inside, she's actually coming back to herself. She's reclaiming pieces of her identity that she set aside to make the relationship work. Her independence, her instincts, her sense of self as a complete person, not an extension of someone else. And here's the part that's hard to hear. She's not doing this to hurt you. She's doing this because something in her has already started preparing for a version of the future, though, where you're not the center of it. She hasn't decided that. Her body has. Her nervous system has. The part of her brain that tracks safety and belonging has already rerouted. Think about what this means. She's not pulling away violently because violent pulls create resistance. She's pulling away gently, gradually, in ways that look like growth, look like self-improvement, look like the woman you fell in love with, becoming more herself. And in a way, she is. But that becoming is also a quiet departure. Phase 4, future alignment check. This is the phase most people never see, because it doesn't look like anything is happening. But inside, something critical has shifted. She starts evaluating the future differently. Not consciously, not with spreadsheets or pros and cons lists, but with a quiet, almost unconscious question that lives underneath every decision she makes. Does the life I'm building while you still have room for this? She starts thinking about travel. Not the trips you planned, but the ones she imagines alone. She considers a career change. That doesn't factor in your location. She dreams in a voice that doesn't include the word we. And she may not even notice it's happening. Because the shift isn't from love to indifference. The shift is from certainty to openness, from this is my life into what if my life looked different? A landmark study on relationship dissolution by Dr. Steve Duck found that breakup isn't an event. It's a process that begins long before either person acknowledges it. The internal shift happens first. The external conversation happens last. By the time she sits you down and says, "We need to talk," the decision was made months ago, in 100 tiny moments you didn't even register. This is the part where most men say, "She changed." No, she didn't change. She stopped performing the version of herself that the relationship required. And what you're seeing isn't someone new, it's someone original. Now here's the compassionate part that matters. The closing attempt at inclusion. The moment right before the end that almost no one recognizes. Right before a woman makes the final decision to leave, she usually does one more thing. She reaches out. Not directly. Not with a clear conversation, but with something that looks like a sudden desire to fix things. She suggests counseling. She brings up a trip. She initiates intimacy after weeks of distance. She says, "I don't want to lose you." And she means it in that moment. But here's what's actually happening. She's giving the relationship one final chance to prove that the feeling in her body is wrong, that the distance she senses isn't real, that you'll see her, really see her, and respond in a way that makes her feel safe enough to stay. Most men miss this. They think the sudden warmth means everything is fine. They relax. They stop trying. They assume the crisis has passed. And they're right. The crisis has passed. But what they don't understand is that it passed into silence. The warmth was the last question. And when the answer didn't come, she stopped asking. Think about that. The moment that looked like reconnection was actually the final test. And it wasn't a game. It was the most honest thing she'd done in months. For the men watching, you now have something most men never get. A map. Not to control her. Not to manipulate the outcome. But to understand what's actually happening beneath the surface before it's too late. The answer isn't control, it's presence. The kind of directional certainty that makes her feel safe enough to tell you what she actually needs before her nervous system makes the decision for her. For the women watching, if you saw yourself in this, if you felt that tightening in your chest, you now have something most women never get. Language for what you've been doing, without knowing why. That exhaustion of managing everything, that hunger you weren't given permission to feel, the moments you chose silence over saying what you needed. This wasn't manipulation. This was self-preservation. And there's no shame in needing to feel safe enough to stop rehearsing your exit. Both of you have been starving for the same thing, from opposite sides of the same wall. She needs to feel safe enough to stop preparing to leave. He needs to understand that her preparation isn't betrayal. It's a signal. The question is whether either of you will read it in time. This is her unspoken mind. Subscribe if you want to understand what's really happening beneath.